There are mistakes that will never appear in law books. They're not crimes in the eyes of the state, but in the world of power, they are fatal. They don't come with warnings. They don't scream. They whisper. They rot the foundation beneath your feet, silently. Power rarely collapses in one grand explosion. It decays, quietly, piece by piece. One tolerated betrayal, one overlooked insult, one moment of hesitation. You think you're being merciful. You think you're being mature. But in the language of power, silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it's surrender. Ralph Waldo Emerson, a man often misunderstood as merely idealistic, wasn't obsessed with domination. He was obsessed with reality. He saw through masks. He saw what really causes kings to fall, reputations to crumble, legacies to vanish. It's not enemies at the gate. It's the friends who vanish during war. It's the flatterers who feed your ego while stealing your clarity. It's the people who smile in public and whisper in private. Emerson's genius wasn't in teaching ruthlessness. It was in teaching clarity. He warned that the greatest danger to a leader isn't rebellion. It's tolerance of things that should never be forgiven. And so, this is not a message about being liked. It's a message about survival. The kind of survival that keeps a person from becoming a puppet, from losing their throne, from being destroyed by the very people they once protected. Today, we'll reveal the 7 behaviors Emerson warned us never to tolerate, even when they come from those we love, respect, or once believed in. This isn't pop psychology. This is ancient warfare disguised as modern wisdom. Because power, real power, must be protected not only from enemies, but from weakness within. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever hesitated and watched everything fall apart, if you've ever questioned why loyalty disappeared the moment you stumbled, then this message is for you. And if it awakens something in you, a memory, a regret, a moment of painful clarity, stay until the end. Because sometimes you don't lose everything because you were weak. You lose everything because you were too strong to punish the ones who deserved it. Loyalty is cheap when skies are blue. Anyone can smile in the sunlight. Anyone can stand beside you when the throne is stable, when the money flows, when the audience applauds. But Emerson never measured loyalty in comfort. He measured it in chaos. He wrote that the only true test of allegiance is crisis, because when the world starts burning, masks melt, the cowards run. The opportunists vanish, and the ones you thought would die for you, they disappear without a trace. You've seen it. The ones who shared your victories, who danced at your wins, who praised your name like it was sacred, but the moment the tide turned, silence. No calls, no messages, no help. Just distance dressed up as I had my own problems. And then, when you rise from the ashes, when you claw your way out of that pit, they return. With empty eyes and carefully crafted words, I didn't know what to say. I wanted to help, but I wasn't sure how. Don't believe them. Emerson would say, silence during your suffering is a declaration. It doesn't need an explanation. It is the explanation. He warned that when you forgive betrayal, not out of strategy, but out of weakness, you don't just invite it back. You tell the world, this is acceptable, and once that message spreads, loyalty dies. People stop following you out of respect. They follow out of calculation. Is he still strong? Is it still worth standing by him? Will he forgive me too? You are no longer a leader. You are a gamble. And that is far more dangerous than an enemy. Enemies sharpen your blade. Fake friends dull your instincts. You see, Emerson understood the truth. Power isn't lost in one dramatic betrayal. It's lost in 100 quiet tolerances, 100 unpunished disappearances. 100 times you said, it's okay, I understand, but you must stop understanding people who abandoned you at your weakest, because the one who leaves during your fall will never fight for your rise. That absence, that silence when you were on the edge, wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a signal, and if you miss it, you invite collapse, because here's what happens when you let betrayers back in. They return bolder. They know you won't punish. They know your kindness outweighs your clarity, and the next time, they won't just abandon you. they'll bring others with them, Emerson wrote. The reputation of a leader begins not with his victories, but with how he responds to betrayal, not through cruelty, through certainty. You don't need rage. You need boundaries made of iron. Because once your followers see that someone can walk away during war and return during peace, they start to wonder, what else will he tolerate? And just like that, your entire court, your team, your circle turns from a kingdom into a performance. People don't admire you anymore. They assess you. They stay loyal only when it serves them. They clap only when others are clapping. They nod while calculating your worth. That's not leadership. That's dependency on illusion. So what do? You remember faces, not apologies. You record absences, not explanations. You protect the throne, not the feelings of those who left it undefended, because in crisis, you don't need 100 warm bodies. You need one soul who will burn with you, bleed with you, rise with you. That one is worth more than 1,000 who only show up when the sky is clear. If you've ever trusted someone during your downfall and watched them disappear, this is your confirmation. You weren't too harsh. You were too forgiving. And from now on, that ends. You do not rebuild an empire with the same hands that let it collapse. You do not share your comeback with the ones who ghosted your fall. Emerson didn't teach cruelty. He taught survival. He taught how to recognize the cracks before the collapse, because the truth is brutal. No one stays loyal to a man who's left standing alone. And the ones who abandon you once, they'll do it again unless you draw the line. There's nothing more dangerous than a coward in command. Cowardice, it's not always loud. It doesn't always tremble. Sometimes it hides behind virtue, behind polite smiles and endless caution. You might think cowardice is the fear of battle, but Emerson saw it differently. He saw it as the fear of decision. He warned that the slow death of every leader begins the moment he starts asking permission from the crowd he was meant to lead. Because power doesn't vanish in a single blow. It erodes through hesitation. He wrote, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." That was not a call for adventure. It was a call for courage, for decisive motion when fear whispers, "Wait." Imagine a general in his war room. The enemy advances. The map is clear. Every soldier watches for the command, but the leader hesitates. He stares at the map, measures one more time, calls one more meeting. How long before someone in that room begins to doubt him? How long before they start to whisper, maybe he's not sure anymore? That is how power dies, not with rebellion, but with hesitation. Every moment of fear at the top multiplies downward. It becomes confusion. It becomes doubt. It becomes chaos. Emerson understood that action itself is a form of faith. He said, "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain," because when a leader acts, even imperfectly, he restores belief. But when a leader hesitates, the people beneath him don't ask for clarification. They start looking for a replacement. You see, cowardice in leadership is rarely visible at first. It hides under noble phrases. "I need more time. We must consult the council. This decision is too important to rush." It sounds wise. It sounds careful. But in the world of power, waiting too long is more dangerous than being wrong, because the wrong move can be corrected. Hesitation, though. Hesitation becomes reputation. Soon the whispers spread. He used to be bold. He used to know what he wanted. What happened to him? And from that moment, the throne starts to shake. Emerson once wrote, "Always do what you are afraid to do." He wasn't speaking to dreamers. He was speaking to rulers, to builders, to creators, to anyone carrying the weight of responsibility. He believed that moral courage is the root of every form of greatness, that it is better to stumble moving forward than to stand frozen calculating safety, because safety for a leader is an illusion. It doesn't protect you, it paralyzes you. Now imagine this in your own life. You've built something, a team, a business, a family, a dream. Everyone looks to you when things grow uncertain. If you pause too long, if you doubt your own command, the faith they have in you starts to fade. They don't rebel immediately. They simply stop following wholeheartedly. They start deciding for themselves. And one day, you look around and realize you're not leading anymore. You're negotiating with people who used to trust your direction. Emerson would remind you, self-trust is the first secret of success. Without it, nothing holds. So what do you do when fear starts to whisper? You act, even if your voice shakes, even if your confidence trembles. You act because action is clarity. Action says to the world, I may not know everything, but I will not stand still. And the moment you act, doubt retreats. But there is another danger Emerson saw, one even subtler than cowardice: flattery. Not the flattery from strangers, but from the people closest to you. The soft words that sound like loyalty, but feel like poison. He once warned, the louder he talked of his honor, the faster we counted our spoons. Because Emerson knew that praise can corrupt judgment faster than hatred ever could. Enemies sharpen your instincts. Flatterers dull them. They don't challenge your decisions. They don't tell you when you're slipping. They praise you into blindness until the ground beneath you begins to crack. Flatterers are never loyal to you. They're loyal to the warmth of your power, to the benefits they gain by staying close to the fire, but never close enough to burn. They nod at your ideas, clap at your speeches, and drown every doubt in sweet agreement. But remember what Emerson said, a friend is one before whom I may think aloud. A true ally doesn't echo you. He refines you. He risks your anger to protect your clarity when everyone around you always agrees. You are not surrounded by loyalty. You are surrounded by danger in disguise. Because the leader addicted to applause slowly loses the ability to hear the truth. He starts to believe that silence means approval. He thinks, no one's pushing back, so I must be doing everything right. That is how empires crumble, not from attack, but from comfort. Comfort unchecked is the coffin of kings. So look around your circle. Who flatters you when they should correct you? Who smiles too quickly, nods too often, vanishes when questioned? Those are not allies. They are echoes. And echoes don't protect thrones. They repeat the lies that destroy them. Emerson's philosophy was simple but brutal. Flattery is seduction. It lures leaders into laziness, into self-adoration, into isolation. Because when every voice around you is soft, you forget what power demands. Friction, that necessary resistance that keeps your vision sharp, your instincts alive, your strategy honest. So if you wish to endure, surround yourself with minds, not mirrors. Choose people who disturb your comfort if it means protecting your truth. Because truth is not always kind, but it's the only thing that keeps your foundation intact. There's a moment every leader dreads. A public challenge, a sudden interruption, a raised eyebrow that says, are you really in control? Power doesn't break in private. It cracks in front of an audience. And Emerson understood this better than most. He wrote, what you are speaks so loudly I cannot hear what you say. The crowd isn't listening to your words. They're watching your response. Let someone mock your order in front of others. Let a subordinate joke at your expense. If you do nothing, if you hesitate, you've already set the precedent. Because now the room is no longer measuring the challenger. It's measuring you. Do you act or do you tolerate? And the moment you tolerate, doubt begins to spread. Emerson warned that moral courage must always be visible. Not cruelty, not rage, clarity. Because if one person can defy you publicly without consequence, everyone else learns the same silent lesson. This authority can be tested. That's how power unravels. Not with rebellion, but with small performances of defiance that grow bolder with each laugh, each unpunished act of disrespect. When someone challenges your authority in public, they aren't merely disagreeing. They're planting seeds of doubt in the minds around you. And once doubt takes root, belief dies. So what do? You don't shout. You don't overreact. You act with certainty. Remind the room without anger that respect has a price and that discipline protects everyone. Private criticism can be heard. Public defiance must be answered. Not because you crave obedience, but because leadership without consequence is theater without an audience. Emerson never glorified fear. He glorified firmness. That quiet conviction that says, I will not let order decay, because when people see that your calm is not weakness but control, they trust you again. And trust, once restored, is worth more than applause. But there is another poison, one softer, subtler, deadlier than open defiance. Ingratitude. Emerson saw it everywhere, in friendships, in politics, in faith. He wrote, "You cannot do kindness too soon, for you never know how soon it will be too late." But he also understood the danger of kindness without boundaries, because gratitude that doesn't return as loyalty isn't gratitude at all. It's calculation. You lifted them up, believed in them, protected them when no one else would. And when the storm came, they were the first to disappear, or worse, they were the first to betray. And when you rise again, they return with the same soft smile, the same rehearsed apology. "I always believed in you." No, they believed in your usefulness, not in you. Emerson taught that mercy without discipline is not virtue, it's vanity. He would say, "The man who lets ingratitude live in his house teaches betrayal to grow in his garden." When you forgive the ungrateful out of weakness, you don't earn loyalty. You signal vulnerability. You tell the world that betrayal is survivable, that it has no cost. And once people learn that, they'll test you again, not out of malice, but because you trained them to. Gratitude cannot be demanded, but ingratitude must never be rewarded. Cut them loose, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity, because your forgiveness is sacred, your mercy strategic, and your power not a charity to be exploited, but a trust to be guarded. And then comes the most dangerous deception of all, virtue turned into performance. You've seen them. The loud moralists, the self-proclaimed righteous. They don't confront you in private. They condemn you in public. They don't want correction. They want a crowd. They weaponize compassion, turning empathy into theater. They say, "You've lost touch. You're not kind enough." They frame your strength as coldness, your discipline as arrogance. Emerson saw this long before our time. He warned that when morality becomes spectacle, truth becomes a script. He wrote, "The louder he talked of his virtue, the faster we counted our spoons," because real virtue doesn't shout. It doesn't post. It doesn't seek an audience. It works in silence. It corrects with care, not condemnation. False virtue, however, needs a spotlight. It performs righteousness to gain power. It's not here to help you lead. It's here to replace you. So what does a leader do? You don't fight performance with performance. You don't beg to be understood. You name the play for what it is and act with composure. Because if you let emotional narratives dictate your rule, your leadership becomes fragile. The loudest voice wins, and soon every challenger learns the same trick, to cry louder than you act. Emerson's warning echoes here. If virtue becomes the measure of power, then only the best actors will wear the crown. And when actors rule, nothing real is built, only appearances. So, remember what we've walked through. The 7 quiet behaviors that destroy strength. Betrayal in crisis. Those who vanish when you fall, then return when you rise. Cowardice in leadership. Indecision disguised as patience. Flattery as loyalty. Soft words that blind rather than sharpen. Public defiance. Challenges that test authority in the open. Ingratitude after mercy. Those who use your kindness as leverage. Ambition without loyalty. Brilliance that serves only itself. Virtue as a weapon. Morality turned into theater to shame you into surrender. Etch these into your mind, because power doesn't collapse from enemies outside the gate. It collapses when you tolerate the weakness within. Every time you forgive betrayal without consequence. Every time you confuse cowardice for calm. Every time you choose comfort over clarity. You teach the people around you that weakness is acceptable. And once that lesson spreads, you're not leading a kingdom. You're managing opportunists, waiting for a better offer. Emerson didn't teach cruelty. He taught vision. He taught how to see through masks, to confront what others avoid, to protect what others tolerate. He would remind you, peace cannot be achieved through avoidance. but through truth lived firmly. So draw the line. Enforce the standard. Don't punish later, punish early, so you won't have to punish often. You don't need to be cruel. You only need to be clear. That is how empires survive. That is how leaders last. Not through popularity, not through emotional purity, but through unwavering standards and the courage to uphold them. If you've made it to the end of this message, you're not here by accident. You are someone building something, a business, a family, a legacy, or your own inner strength. And you must protect it, not with rage, not with fear, but with surgical clarity. Because in a world full of smiles, distractions, and soft betrayals, power survives only in the hands of those who see clearly and act without apology.